Whenever the devil harasses you thus, seek the company of men, or drink more, or joke and talk nonsense, or do some other merry thing. Sometimes we must drink more, sport, recreate ourselves, aye, and even sin a little to spite the devil, so that we leave him no place for troubling our consciences with trifles. We are conquered if we try too conscientiously not to sin at all. So when the devil says to you, "Do not drink," answer him, "I will drink and right freely, just because you tell me not to." Martin Luther.
Welcome back to the Go to Hell podcast. Strong opinions, weekly held about Christianity, the church, and beer. Here are your hosts, Tim Curley and Colton Pierce.
Beer number 3.
Oh, yeah. All right. If you've been listening to this podcast very long, aka in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, the last couple of weeks in particular.
We started throwing some shade towards the Nelson hop. And for whatever reason, Tim decided to smoke one.
It was the
yesterday.
can. It was the can. One, it was the can. I got suckered in by the hoppy Willie Nelson. I completely.
Yeah. We're all sucked. We all are big fans of Willie Nelson.
And then the Altamont, because the last beer we had on here that we said was the worst beer ever was a collab between Belching Beaver and Altamont Brewing Company. And so I thought
it wasn't the worst beer that we had.
The second worst beer.
That was like the Stone one was. God,
second worst beer.
Couldn't even drink it.
The beer that was described at our local brewery as burning tires and gasoline. So I figured, all right, we'll give him a second chance. Truthfully, I should have, because it's Willie Nelson. I should have said, oh yeah, it's Nelson hops, and we've decided we're not on that train anymore because it can go poorly very quickly. So, but we're trying it anyway. It smells skanky as hell, but it actually tastes pretty good.
It's okay. I'm not writing home about it, that's for sure.
Frankly, I think this is the flavor that we talk about that Belching Beaver has on all their IPAs. Where we're like, but they just have a hint of it.
I don't taste it. I do taste this. I do taste the dank, but I also do taste that Nelson.
It's the Nelson on the back.
It's pretty fresh though, which is
crisp.
It's
crisp and fresh.
Well, I was saying it's fresh from the standpoint of they made this November 7th, so that's pretty good for Altamont. So
I will take it down to Kui on Friday and see what kind of response I get.
I think you'll get a fairly decent response.
It's good. It's fine.
I'm not buying another 4-pack.
I'm not buying another 4-pack either.
No.
But it resurrects Altamont, which our friend Eric will be happy about because apparently he knows somebody who lives like a block away from it and raves about it. So I will look for more Altamont beer, just not any more Nelson.
Yeah.
Are the New Zealanders just giving this hop away because it's everywhere? It's like
I think it's just trendy. You know, I mean, everybody was making hazies a couple years ago. Mosaic was a big hop there for a while.
Well, those are still big hops, but man, people are going all in on these Nelsons like it's been given away.
That's because I think people were like really hot and heavy for it, and then it was just like
it is nice and it's both it does have that funky Nelson hop flavor,
but it doesn't have the weird...
but it's crisp and bitter in a good way too.
I will say that it doesn't have the weird ass back aftertaste that
no.
some of the Nelson hops
the funky Nelson goes away real quick.
So it's if you're a fan of the Nelson hop, it might be something that worth checking into.
I'm enjoying it the more I drink it, but that might be because I've had 3 beers. So okay, so now we'll get to Thanksgiving. I'm gonna read. How long is this gonna take?
I had a mango before I came here, so.
Oh dear, that's a double.
Mm-hmm. It's only like 8% though.
Okay, so I tootle around the internet trying to find something to inspire a decent conversation about
gobble
Thanksgiving. I will admit I'll out myself. At one point when I was very like mixing country and religion. I think I personally read Lincoln's
Oh my gosh.
Thanksgiving, and it was my idea. This is like, it's all on me. I read Lincoln's Thanksgiving proclamation. Maybe it was Washington's in front of the church at the previous church we were at. So I am recovering, look, folks. I'm still recovering from this stuff. So I tried to find some stuff. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna find what our good friend Greg Boyle.
That's the type of shit that would wake me up in the middle of the night and just make me like cringe, like out of nowhere.
What did I do?
It's like hugging your teacher, thinking that it was your mom. Like, you know,
I'm rocking in the corner, like, I'm sorry, God. What have I done?
Yeah,
Wasted hours, wasted time on this
you should
planet.
be embarrassed by that, honestly.
I'm 100% embarrassed. All right. So I found this by our friend, Mr. Boyd, who we quote from time to time.
Oh, Greg.
This is actually from 2013. But
I don't think I've heard his take on this. So this will be.
He posts something every year for Thanksgiving. I read a bunch of them. Some of them were just like, "I'm thankful for you, listeners," and all that kind of stuff.
Lame, boring stuff.
I liked this one, and based on how our discussion through this podcast has gone, I think you'll enjoy this too. It hits on some good notes. So he says, here we go. This last week, the Washington Times published an article that told the story of the first Thanksgiving that I wanted to highlight today. I know there's a lot of conflicting opinions on the facts of history and the quote-unquote rightness of celebrating a holiday that marks the early colonization of the native peoples by Christians who eventually decimated these people groups. But as I read this article, I really did experience gratitude for the kindness of the Native Americans who took a small gesture from the settlers and generously turned it into a 3-day feast to encourage the newcomers to their land.
Absolutely.
Again, if you're listening to this and you're like, that's all myth. Look, sometimes myths are helpful. So I don't care if you find that story a myth or it actually happened. Stick with Greg here. It's a good little story. Whether it's myth or actually happened, it's something we need to think about. Of course, we can also grieve as we think of the future that was awaiting for those native people groups and the sad history of the settlers' many broken promises disguised as the will of God. Yes, very much true. We had a bunch of dumb white people come over here thinking it was ordained by God and found nothing but tragedy. Greg goes on, still, I think this is the holiday worth redeeming and celebrating. It never hurts to set aside time to remember what we are thankful for. From a kingdom perspective, we don't give thanks for the fact that Europeans ended up conquering this land while massacring millions of natives and enslaving millions of Africans in the process. This we can only deplore. We rather simply remember that, in the midst of the brutality of the fallen world, quote, every good gift comes to us from the Father, as James tells us. We should look for and give thanks for every glimmer of light that breaks through the clouds of our oppressed world and that warms our heart. The sort of glimmer the natives demonstrated to the pilgrims on the first Thanksgiving Day. So today I want to take time to thank all of you who have walked alongside us as we speak further to the kingdom of God. We will stop there. Thank you everyone who's put up with this podcast now for 2 years. We love you guys. My heart is full as I think back on our humble beginnings. Yes, Colton and I recording 20 episodes and not knowing how to get these things edited and up on the internet. It was like, we're really good at recording. We just can't get them edited and up. I think back to our humble beginnings as I read letters of encouragement that many of you have taken time to write. Yeah, none of you bastards are doing that. And as I see the kingdom movement growing and beginning to network in America and around the world, be blessed and remember the goodness of God to us. So we definitely thank you guys. This podcast, I don't care if it's 10 of you or 20 of you or 70 of you or 100 or whatever. We very much value our time. I know Colton and I, even on our own, just value this time where we can talk out our cockamamie ideas. And we hope our cockamamie ideas have maybe helped you guys think through things, or maybe helped you think like, oh, I don't have to feel guilty about questioning that because my pastor said that's a bad idea. Maybe you still go to a church that says, we should stand with Israel no matter what because they're God's chosen people. And you're like, I'm not sure about that. Whatever it is, We thank you for this journey, Colton.
I gotta say, I'm really appreciative of what it is that we do here. We talk about music, we talk about beer, we talk about life. We talk about friends, we talk about family.
Yeah. It's not just breaking down some verse in the Bible.
No, my wife asked me this week, and you're gonna laugh, but she said, "Are we going to church?" And I said, "I already went this week." And just so we're clear, and Tim and I talk about all the time. We're like, "Yeah, home church is the answer," and we're like, "Yeah, but we don't do it." I don't know how many podcasts we've sat there and said, "Yeah, like actually, home church is what people should be doing."
I think there's value in hypocrisy. That's my answer to that.
But also, I mean, I reflected on it this weekend where what we do on these Tuesday nights and I hope that I think that sometimes we come off as guys that have answers. And I don't think so at all. I mean, I think that we come off arrogant and we have answers sometimes because we are the only two guys talking in the room.
Sure.
And that's why we would like
we
would
talk
like for you to write to us. But
our mutual friend Brandon and I used to have these long conversations, and when we were done, we'd both agree, like, all right, well, if only everyone listened to us, the world's problems would go away. And it was always very tongue in cheek, and I always kind of view that as our podcast. And I would also point out to everyone, when I start the show, I say weekly held. That is a double entendre. It is both every week when we can do it, and it is also, as much as we sound like we think we know what we're talking about, and we can get very demonstrative about how someone's a moron like Russell Moore for what he says, it's all said at the end of the day with a great level of humility.
Yeah, and I think hopefully is actually we're two guys that are challenged by things that are going on in our world, things that are going on in the church, things that are going on in our lives that we wanted to sit there and discuss and see if there was anybody out there that those conversations resonated with. And even if it wasn't, it was at least an opportunity for the two of us to get together and have that conversation. And we know our podcast is long and every single week, and we know that not all of you agree with every single statement that we have, but we are so grateful for this opportunity, for this church that we have created here. This is something that I look forward to every week. I think actually after this water polo season, it really showed me how grateful I was for this. Because even last season when we did water polo, we were still able to make it through, but I wasn't a head coach then.
Yeah.
And I wasn't working 40 minutes away from my home, and I didn't have a child and all that kind of stuff. And so I didn't have as much responsibilities that I had.
Baby.
Yeah, what the hell, Reese?
What were you thinking? Procreating.
Yeah.
How dare you?
It was an accident, I promise. Sorry, Reese. I think that it really showed me how grateful I was for these conversations and just being able to sit there and talk. And again, I don't know many people that sit there and get to have a conversation. And even if you're like, I'm dead tired of the past 4 weeks of you guys talking about Israel and Hamas. And we put it on break last week. We talked about Goodwill Hunting the entire time. But, I mean, if you're sitting there and you're like, it's dumb or whatever, I don't know how many people are able to sit there and dissect that with someone every single week. And so, Tim, I just want to say I'm really grateful to you for opening up your home and giving us this opportunity to be able to have these conversations. Even if they weren't recorded, it's still a great opportunity for us to have, to where we both feel that this is a safe space that we're able to share this stuff. Although I do think that we could definitely call tonight's podcast the one where we get canceled, because Colton brought up police brutality. We did Israel Hamas, and we said, "Get the fuck out of here, Israel, with all your shit." We didn't say it like that, but so I am extreme, and if any of you are listening still at this point, I just want to say I am extremely grateful for you. I wish you would comment more, but it's all good. Or send in questions or whatever. Or even Tim threw down the gauntlet earlier and said that Andy's going to be upset with something that I said, and I was like, Andy, I'd welcome a conversation about it, where maybe we can sit there and maybe you were upset and you got stuff going through your brain or whatever. Then absolutely, let's talk about it.
Yeah, I mean that harkens back to the highest listened to podcast we had, where it was you and Andy going back and forth. Not actually going back and forth. You were commiserating quite a bit, and I think letting people know what it's actually like to be teachers, at least in the state of California, if not probably most places around the country. And that was our most widely listened.
Yeah,
to
that's because
episode,
that's because you used the Pink Floyd lyric as the title.
But I mean, the only time Andy and I really have argued, other than maybe like if Andy Reid's really a good head coach or not for the Chiefs, is over police. The thing you brought up, which is police brutality, where I have more of a worldview of you. Where I'm like, you know what? At some point, it's not all like black people of color need to get with the program. And Andy's very good at pointing out, like, here's why this is it. This is it. So I think it'd be good for people to hear that conversation.
All you need is to just mention the Ronald Reagan era, and you automatically win that conversation. Andy's like, he was the best president. All right. No, but in all seriousness, really grateful. This has been a 1.5-year journey doing this podcast, and I hope that it doesn't end anytime soon, because I really enjoy what we do here. So,
well, you were very generous to point out, me opening up my house so we record here in my house. I'm going to turn that generosity actually to your wife. No, I don't know how many women would allow their husbands, after recently having a baby, continue to do this. Be like, nope, you need to take some things out, and I need you here all the time. So, cheers to you, Audrey.
Cheers to Audrey. She's honestly the best mom on the face of the planet.
She's a great mom. And if you do know Audrey, there's a bit of a cowgirl in her, just like, dust yourself off. And so I'm not totally surprised. She's not a delicate flower in any way. So
no, definitely not. Definitely not.
All right. Well, we hope you've enjoyed yet another long episode of the Go to Hell podcast. Subscribe, rate, and review. Only so, not to make us feel better. Colton and I don't care. It's so that the stupid algorithms that run the interwebs.
Oh, there we go.
Will find more people. The more people who subscribe, rate, and review, they get bumped up. We get bumped up on Spotify.
That's
and
true.
Google Play.
That is true.
I don't care about the reviews. You could all shit on us, but give us reviews so more people find out. We get more people in this community. This
all publicity is good publicity.
This little internet church we call the Go to Hell podcast. And if you don't want to subscribe, rate, and view, go to hell. Also, Colton, you don't like turkey? You can go to hell.